It is commonly believed that within a fantasy setting like Dungeons and Dragons, Forgotten Realms, Pathfinder's Galarion, or Exalted's Creation, that the gods are real, and therefore the idea of atheism is nonsensical. After all, if Pelor can bless the local cleric, and then he can heal your wounds with that divine magic, how can you maintain there are no gods? Sometimes gods even show up on the material plane right in front of you and display their cosmic powers. Usually there's some means to visit the afterlife and witness firsthand the faith of the dead being validated. Given all that, how can anyone claim to be an atheist in such a world? To answer the question, we first have to understand what a god is. Broadly speaking, we in the Western world are trained to generally think of God through the Abrahamic lens, that is, as an omnipotent creator being who may exist outside time and reality as we know it. In fantasy fiction, deities tend to be more superficially similar to pre-Abrahamic pagan characters like Zeus and Odin. Fallible and anthropomorphic, but vastly more powerful than the average human. They grant boons to those that follow them, and they sometimes participate directly in global affairs. In the real world, there are many standards for what constitutes a god that fall outside of these two conventions. Animists, like, for instance, Japan's Shinto faith, see gods in many things, and such deities may be very minor, weaker, or less able to influence the world even than human beings. European pagans, like the Romans, held on to the belief in minor deities like household gods and gods of the road. Stranger definitions of what exactly godhood means can be found in esoteric faiths. Clearly, there's a wide range of what might be called a god, in fiction and in reality alike. There isn't a universal definition of the term, yet the word God itself may shed some useful light on the deeper meaning therein. God is derived from the Proto-German Gudon, which is generally agreed to derive from gutom, meaning to pour or libate, or possibly from gue, meaning to call or to invoke. These old German words actually have an origin in ancient Indo-Aryan civilization, and the Sanskrit equivalent huta means having been sacrificed or one to whom sacrifices are made. The meaning of deity is also closely linked with Indo-Aryan civilization, originating in Deus, the paternal sky or sun god of that ancient civilization. To recap, the meaning of the word God essentially refers to that which people call upon, invoke, or sacrifice on behalf of. While this doesn't fully capture all possible understandings of the term, it is probably as broad a meaning as is possible. So how might extracting this meaning help us to understand how atheism is possible in a setting where these gods are unambiguous about their nature? There are two good examples in the real world that help us to illustrate the problem with taking gods at their word or even at their being. First of these is the existence of cargo cults. The Prince Philip movement started in the wake of World War II on a small island in Vanuatu. To quote Wikipedia, according to ancient Yaohanan tales, the son of a mountain spirit traveled over the seas to a distant land. There he married a powerful woman and in time would return to them. He was sometimes said to be a brother to John Frum. The people of Yaohanan area believed that Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, the consort to Queen Elizabeth II, is a divine being. They had seen the respect accorded to Queen Elizabeth II by the colonial officials and concluded that her husband, Prince Philip, must be the son referred to in their legends. This belief in the divinity of Prince Philip seems preposterous to us, because we know that Prince Philip is merely a man, and yet the cargo cult knows also that he is a man, only they believe him to be inhabited by a great spirit that makes him divine. The basis of this belief is, to them, self-evident, as within the world they had experienced, none were so exalted as Queen Elizabeth, and so her husband surely must have been the prophesied mountain spirit returned home to them. In a more practical sense, Prince Philip is, from their perspective, the leader of a great host of powerful warriors, possesses unfathomable wealth, and has knowledge of the world that surpasses any of the islanders. He possesses wonders like electricity, firearms, airplanes, and the detritus of his prosperity is a treasure trove for the natives. The formation of the term cargo cult has its origins in exactly that. The point of illustrating the perspective of the islanders is to frame power against divinity. Undoubtedly, Prince Philip is a powerful being capable of many wondrous, outright impossible feats relative to the islanders. Similarly, an adult black dragon is far more powerful than the average denizen of the material plane. Yet it is not the power that they possess which make them gods. Prince Philip does not hold unthinkable power in relation to many other figures, and we do not perceive him as supernaturally gifted. Indeed, we recognize far more powerful entities, like the dictators of North Korea and China, as potentially threatening the survival of the human species by their individual actions, yet they are not deified, at least not by us. We can all agree that Prince Philip is not a god, yet he is, literally speaking, a god. That is, he is that which is called upon, invoked, or sacrificed on behalf of, and not merely in a general sense, but in a spiritual one, in the same way that we might treat Jesus, or Muslims might treat Muhammad. So then, a God exists in our world, we know he is present, and still people have the gall to declare themselves atheists? This is the core of the contradiction at the heart of the general perception of fantasy worlds. Powerful entities are called gods, display abilities that we tend to culturally associate with gods, and are worshipped by many of the denizens of these fantasy settings. And so we think this makes them godly in some kind of objective sense. The reality is that nothing is godly in an objective sense. The nature of divinity is that it is assigned to the object of worship by the worshippers. An atheist lives in a world full of gods, whether he lives in Greyhawk or in Georgia. What makes an atheist in spite of that is the recognition of these entities as deserving their worship, or probably better said, denying that anything or anyone is deserving of such worship. Atheism rejects the notion of divinity itself, not merely the tangible presence of one or two specific gods. Consequently, it doesn't matter that he can plane shift to Elysium or get smited by Gozrah. The atheist is no more swayed to the concept of submitting itself to worship than he is for laughing at the notion that Prince Philip is divine or thumbing his nose at dictators.